So looking ahead then to this summer and to next season, of course, transfers and the financial situation is obviously going to be atop the sort of the agenda at the top of the Juve hierarchy. I suppose before we get into sort of the financial side of it, you've got Weston McKennie, who will be coming in for around 18-20 million euros at the end of his loan deal. That's an obligation. I think it's a good deal. It represents good value. And I suppose it opens a new can of worms really with Allegri coming back. How does he work with these new players who weren't there when he left the club before Maurizio Sarri took over? You got Nicolo Rovella coming in from Genoa for a similar fee. Again, I think it's a good move. And of course, you've got Federico Chiesa into the second year of his loan, but there will be a 50 million or 45 million euro obligation to buy there. There is the scope to say that there is a very talented young crop here that Allegri is going to be able to utilize and perhaps get more out of than a first year coach like Pirlo might have been able to.
Yeah, well, I think this team is really uh, geared to probably play a more transition based style, which I think will suit Allegri more. I think the way that Pirlo talked a lot about pressing high and winning the ball back quickly, but it never quite really eventuated, and the team ended up really attacking very slowly, often being forced to play through the wing backs and relied heavily on Quadrado, who really had a great season to provide a lot of the creativity from right wing back. And I think he was the club's assist leader by some margin. So yeah, I think guys like Weston McKennie, Kulusevski, Chiesa really all suit that kind of transition style, and I think now you just need someone in midfield that can really kickstart those transition attacks, which will be, I think, the logical next step as a club, moves into the transfer market this year.
And hypothetically speaking, if Juventus were to bring in an up and coming midfielder, somebody who has a good understanding, a good experience of Serie A, somebody who you think that Max Allegri could work quite well with, and who'd also be attainable, I feel like you've definitely got a certain player in mind, and I might have a window into who that might be, but I'm just going to wait for you to confirm it because I think I can envisage you just laughing here because I know exactly what's about to come.
Yeah, I've probably only been talking about it non-stop for the last 6 to 9 months, but Manuel Locatelli looks like he's going to be on his way out of Sassuolo this season. They've lost their coach De Zerbi, who's going to Shakhtar. And so, yeah, I think it's a bit of a two or three-way race for him between Juventus, apparently Manchester City, and PSG might be thereabouts as well, snooping around. But yeah, if we're talking about Pirlo, he's the kind of next man up in this team to kind of fulfill that role of progressing the ball from deep. We did a podcast a few months ago where we talked about passes into the final third and the way that Locatelli ranks so highly in that statistic despite playing so deep in midfield. So I think he would be the number one, or should be the number one target for this team that also struggled a lot through the midfield this year. Pirlo struggled to get a mix that fit in terms of defensive quality and ball progression. And so you get in someone like Locatelli that can give you a bit of both, then that's going to improve your team massively. And again, he's a player that I could see Max Allegri really, really enjoying having in his midfield.
Well, there you have it. I think that's Steve's. If he was going to make one change to this Juve team that wasn't Allegri coming in place of Pirlo, it would be to bring Locatelli in. And I suppose now that asks the question because I mean, this is the Scouted Football podcast. We focus on under 23 players, and Weston McKennie's 22 years of age. Rodrigo Bentancur turns 24 in a few months. They're two young players who've. I mean, I've been impressed with Weston McKennie, how he's adapted to Juventus. I think some people may have looked at him and thought, well, is he going to be able to make that step up? Is it possibly a bridge too far? But I think in a transitional season, as it was, during the time of Pirlo being the custodian, perhaps not being the most innovative, but he's got a reasonable amount out of McKennie. I just wonder if, say, for example, Locatelli was to come in. And while the resources that Juventus have, that's clearly something which might be likely. What does that mean? Where does that leave Weston McKennie? Where does that leave Rodrigo Bentancur? Where does that leave Arturo? These players, because they in their own right, they're obviously very talented. But is Max Allegri is he gonna go for old favourites, or is he gonna go with the new man?
Yeah, so I think it might be a little bit difficult to see where McKennie fits in. He kind of was playing his best football with Pirlo, playing a kind of hybrid attacking midfield role, which is kind of difficult to see him playing under Allegri. And then in terms of a fit deeper into midfield, I think the balance of a midfield of Rabiot, Bentancur, and Locatelli would be fantastic. Then with Artur to kind of swing through and be the kind of the rotation piece. So it's kind of hard to see where McKennie fits in. He's gives you good ball winning and good energy and pressing, but I still think there's a lot of deficiencies on the technical side of the game that are going to be, I know, hard to overcome to really crack it at a big team. And by all accounts, there aren't many players at Juventus that aren't going to be up for possible discussions regarding transfers at the end of the season. And it wouldn't surprise me if McKennie is one that they think of moving on if they get some sort of decent offer in. Because, with Allegri coming in, everything is all up in the air now. I think the club has a core of young players of Chiesa, Kulusevski, Delict. There's not many that are untouchable. Maybe Dybala. But, other than that, I think, everything's up in the air at the moment. Even the rumors are that even Ronaldo's position is up in the air. So, McKennie would be one that it's very 50-50 now.
So that's quite interesting for me to hear, I suppose, because, based on the matches that I'd seen, and granted, most of those were in Europe, I was quite impressed with what I saw from McKennie. So I agree that if it's not going to be a perfect stylistic fit, then you've got to back the manager over an individual player, unless you're Cristiano Ronaldo, and I guess we'll get on to that. But I suppose my question really is: you were talking about breaking the cycle. Do you gut the squad? Do you gut the structure of the club? Because obviously with Paratici going as well, top to bottom, Pirlo gone, potential for some of the old guard to leave, potential even for some of the newer additions to go. Who are you retaining here? You were speaking about that young core. Is that pivotal to the rebirth under Allegri?
Well, I don't necessarily think you have to gut the team. You still have Morata, Ronaldo, Dybala, Kulusevski, Chiesa, Rabiot, Bentancur, Artur, Cuadrado, Danilo, who had a fantastic season, Sandro, Chiellini, Bonucci, Demiral, Delic. It's still a good squad from top to bottom. There is a lot to work with still. I just think that there's just little bits and pieces, and you can really, have this team bounce back. And as I said with Locatelli, I think he'd be a really big piece of that. So no, I don't think that there needs to be wholesale changes. Obviously, the financial situation of just about every big club at the moment means you need to, kind of make some movements out to bring players in, and it'll, we'll see who Allegri wants to bring in, because it seems as though, as I said before, him having some say over the transfer side of things seems like part of the agreement with Agnelli to come back. So in terms of where I think they'd look to strengthen, apart from in midfield, possibly left fullback with Alexandro, and then maybe another guy to roll through midfield if they can, sell maybe one of McKennie or maybe both of McKennie and Ramsey. I think is one of the other players that the club's possibly looking to move on with because of injuries and high wages and whatnot. So yeah, I don't think there needs to be massive changes to get this team winning Serie A again.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds a lot more cosmetic, and when you run through the squad list, you do see that there's clearly, there's not, it's not exactly the bare bones of a squad there. You do have a team who is capable of of challenging for Serie A, especially with sort of the implosion that is happening with Conte leaving Inter, and the the anticipated fire sale that there will be going on there. And even just from a youth football, not a youth football, but a young footballer's perspective, you're looking at Delict, 21 years old, Demiral, 23, Bentancur, 23. I mean, I know we've discussed McKennie, but even if he stays, 22. Chiesa, still only 23, but vastly experienced. Kurosevsky, who I think we probably didn't see the best of at Juve under Pirlo, still just 21 years old. That's your rebuild core. I think
And
if you're...
then I think also you've got Dragushin, the centre back from
Yes,
Romania,
yeah, yeah.
who is very, very highly rated at the club and just signed a new contract. And also Nicolo Fagioli is a midfielder that played a couple of games this season that is also highly rated internally, and hopefully gets a. He could be one that thrives if a couple of secondary pieces move elsewhere as well.
See, that surprised me. Well, not surprised me. I didn't know anything about really Dragoshin before I watched him at the under 21 Euros for Romania, and they were a really compact team. They were really well coached and well put together by Adrian Mutu, obviously the former Chelsea striker. Um, I didn't know how highly rated he was at Juve because I mean, there's a track record of players being at Juve and maybe being sold for 5-6 million, but never ever having a chance of making it into the Juve first team. I mean, if he's highly rated and you're saying that, then that's kind of caught me by surprise a little bit.
Yeah, I think RB Leipzig were trying to nab him, and I think we tied him down to a 4-year contract or something like that a few months ago. But yes, he played a couple of games as well this season, and yeah, looks very impressive. So another one to look on this season. And also his game time will probably depend a lot on if Chiellini re-signs, which is up in the air at the moment as well. Or could be a good candidate to go on loan if Chiellini does re-sign with the club.